Okay, there you go. We got it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us, man, on Real Rock Radio and taking the time. I uh, I wanted to share something with you that I've been wanting to share for many years, man. Uh, when you guys were touring with Ozzy at Bark at the Moon, I opened up the curtain. I'd never been to a rock show, and the first thing I see is Frankie's drum kit. It said Quiet Riot on there. So
Yeah,
you were the
yeah.
first I ever saw.
Yeah, actually, the last tour that I did with Ozzy was the Diary of a Madman tour. By the time Bark of the Moon, the album and the tour happened, I was already playing with Quiet Riot, the Metal Health version of Quiet
Right.
Riot.
Yeah.
That's in 1983. Yeah,
My mother still, she passed away, but she saved my mask and my tour program from that show.
yeah,
I still
yeah,
have it.
yeah, yeah. I
So,
got a mess too, somewhere in the house.
well, you've got a long history, man. I mean, you are such an incredible, bass player that unless you're not from this earth, you don't know who you are. You know what I'm saying? I just watched The Hired Gun, and then,
Mhm.
watching your story, it just blew me away to be able to be a young kid and see you and being such a big
Mhm.
influence, in my life. And to be able talking to you is incredible. I kind of have to pinch myself sometimes. But
Mhm.
you have gone through so much, in the music industry, losing so many great people, so many great artists.
Mhm.
How do you keep focused? How do you stay grounded, man? I know it's difficult, and there's probably not one word answer, but a lot of people just didn't make it in this business for whatever reason or another.
Oh, you mean making it? Uh, you
Emotionally,
mean?
physically, I mean, I know the music industry is hard because I was a limo
Oh,
driver and I worked with
yeah.
tour bus drivers, and I saw a lot of things that
Mm.
I was like, man, if I was him, I'd probably go home and just take a break. Did you ever get to that
Mhm.
point?
Uh, well, I uh, I wrote this in a book that I published a few years ago called Off the Rails, and there was a moment in my life that I was at my lowest point in my career. I was sleeping in Kevin DuBro's apartment. This is 40 years ago, as we're having this conversation, and I surrender my life to a higher power. I was raised Catholic. I'm Christian. So if you ask me what does that mean to me, it means God. Some people will call it the universe. Some people will call it whatever. They happen to believe it. But the point is that we believe that there's a power greater than us. You know, and what I did is I surrendered my life. I had an epiphany. I was meditating. I had an epiphany, and I in addition to surrendering my life, I I mentioned that the signal that I was going to get to keep going, pursuing a musical career, was that as long as my fingers were moving, I was going to keep playing. A very simple sign, a physical sign, not a a mind sign, a sign based on thought. I left thought behind. I didn't even think about it. When I say surrender, I didn't think about my past, where I had been to that moment. I surrendered to the unknown future that a power greater than me was going to manifest it. And I gotta tell you, everything that happened in my career was higher, at a higher level that my mind could actually conceive. So that came from a higher place, you know, a mind greater than my mind created the blessings that I received through the years, and I still do receive them. So that's how I look at life from that point on. So anything that happened beyond that, for the next 40 years up until today, 40 years ago until today, I have had that spiritual foundation of understanding the things you cannot control, the things you can, and the wisdom to separate one from the other and take action or not to take action, because either emotional action or physical action about it, because there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can, but there's certain things you can, and those are the ones you have to differentiate. Do not suffer. Do not spend your positive energy on a negative occurrence that you have no control of. Only put your positive energy into things that you can either change, or the things that you cannot change, let a higher power do it for you.
Yeah, I learned some of that when I went through rehab, because I was married for like 30 years, and my marriage ended up just abruptly with really there was no answers. And I truly do understand what you mean about, there's just certain things you have no control over, and you have to stay positive, and you have to find that positive somewhere. And music, for me, what I'm doing right now is really what kept me sane, because 10 years ago when I started doing radio podcasting, it was just beginning. It was something new, but it was an avenue that I knew that was going to keep me alive, because if I knew that if I didn't find something, I wasn't gonna be here. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean that's very true. And my radio show is a lot about influence and positiveness for people that music has a lot of influence, but also sometimes we get to the point where we're just so down. But then when I listen to music, the old records, back when we had records, it picks me up. It brings my spirit up, and it gets rid of all that negativity.
Mhm.
Now, if I can ask you something, let's go back. Who was the first person that influenced you into picking up an instrument?
Uh, I would have to say the radio. The radio really influenced me. Of course, visually, I had been, you know, I, I'm 70 years old, so I was born before rock and roll existed. I was born in Cuba. My musical influences while I was living in Cuba for over 10 years as a child, because we left in 1961, was Cuban music. And well, I just call it music. I didn't define it as being, pop, rock and roll, R&B, Cuban music. That's all I listened to. That's what was around me. Once in a while we will have some when in the mid 50s, when rock and roll became popular in America. Yeah, we have Fats Domino, we got played on the radio up until the revolution in '59. But there were like those 3 or 4 years between rock and roll and the revolution that American music, Nat King Cole, you have American artists, performing in Cuba, and there would be Latin music, but intermingle with the mostly Latin music, and then some of the American hits, because also we had American tourists that would travel, and they want to stay in contact with whatever was popular musically at the time. you know Currently in the United States also have that to be able to listen to, and when they tune in to a radio station in Havana, let's say. So they that I it was a melting pot of musical styles and influences, but mainly the main ingredient was Latin music. And then I came to the United States, and what happened was that we were relocated to New Jersey. And in New Jersey, from Miami, my family traveled from Miami to from Cuba to Miami for about a couple of years. We were there. By '63, we were relocated into New Jersey, and New Jersey was a it's a melting pot of, it's the East Coast. This is 1961. You have your like the neighborhoods. It wasn't really together melting. It was like there's the 2 or 3 blocks Polish people live here, 2 or 3 blocks Irish, and then Italians. Little neighborhoods, and that reflected in the schools. When I went to school, there were really not that many Latinos in West New York, New Jersey. So when I went to school, it was like the kids who were Polish would hang out together, and the Italians, and whatever. And I was a loner. So what happened is when the Beatles came on, 1964, Ed Sullivan Show, February, the next day, that just was a social transformation, because it touched everybody across cultures, nationalities, whatever. So now all of a sudden, if you comb your hair forward, because everybody combed it back before the Beatles playing Ed Sullivan, you were immediately identified. You're one of us. It didn't matter where you came from. It's like you're like the Beatles and everything they stand for. I mean, it had more of a cultural impact that I'm actually mentioning right now, because the United States, was coming out of the emotional mood that the Kennedy assassination created. It caused, everybody was mourning, and the youth tune in to the positive energy of the Beatles just to drag us out of that emotionally as a nation. And so the youth led at that point, when the adults were just not ready yet, led the country out of that. And all of a sudden, the music, the whole British invasion, of course, the Beatles started or got the initial exposure and the ball running on the Ed Sullivan Show. But it was the British invasion. Everybody was coming in. Every week there would be a brand new artist, band performing on the Ed Sullivan Show, whether it was Dave Clark 5 or the Animals or the Rolling Stones, you name it. So it was like, it just kept bringing us together. It was like, now we have bands. We hang out, we talk to each other, we hang out in each other's places and meet their families. And it's like a band put together of different cultural backgrounds playing rock and roll. That's what I experienced. And that's what really, really inspired me to become a musician. That unity, inclusiveness as human beings.
Now, seeing from your experience from so many years ago, what do you think of the digital era today? How much it has changed the music industry?
How much it has changed? I think, technology. We have two choices with technology. We can either waste away the possibilities and the potential it has to enrich our lives, or we can embrace it and build a better future, because technology is about the future. Even though sentimentally we sometimes hold on to old technology, like let's say playing vinyl, that's an old technology. And yes, as somebody who grew up with vinyl, I hear the difference, but what are we talking about when we talk about music? Are we talking about listening to analog in a high fidelity dimension? And by that I mean is analog really is a great format to represent what the artist hears in the recording studio, because it's organically transferred from analog tape to analog vinyl. And of course, you're going to be using electronics to reproduce what's in the grooves, to pick up. But at least, it's pretty close to the sound waves that are created with music. As we speak, we're creating sound waves, even though we're going through the computer and the computer is analyzing, but I'm doing that. And another thing that we're doing is we're doing this on Zoom. So we're looking at each other and we're transferring body language, which has its own frequency also. And again, we're doing through the screen. I have my own radio show, and it's on Monsters of Rock Radio, 6 Degrees of Sarso. So it's an interview show. And up until COVID, we were doing it in person. And I got to tell you, it's a whole different interview when I'm sitting across from you talking. Body language, we can feel the actual energy coming off, because we're sitting across from each other, right? So this is what we're doing this is different. It's a different experience. It has its pros and cons. Pros is that we can do it. I don't have to wait for you to be in Los Angeles to come down to the studio so I can do an interview. No, we schedule it. We make it happen. And we're documenting it right here. I have no clue where you're at. But I relate to you. We're instant. We're right here. I'm looking at you and I'm feeling it. I'm learning how to translate visually into an actual vibration and emotion as I sit here in front of the computer. I don't have to rely on your actual energy coming out of your body because you're sitting right across from me.
But isn't it amazing, though, the way technology has come so far apart that, 10 years ago when I started, I would get together with my friends and I said, my very first famous interview is going to be Rudy Sarzo, and everybody laughed. I said, you're nuts, you are crazy. And I said, no, I mean, I go to college for, computers and, programming and all that. So I said, it's coming. It's coming to the point where we are no longer going to have to look at Hit Parader magazine like I did back in the 80s, and just look and see what you guys had to say, what your tour, how it was going. And I said, the way it's coming is we're going to be talking to them visually. And they said, you're nuts.
And
guess what? Today proves it wrong.
Well, I mean, can I add to that thought, because that's
Sure.
you brought something very important for the artist who gets interviewed. There has never ever been a single interview, and I'm talking coming from graduated journalists, people who actually go to the old-fashioned reporters, who in order to get a job in a newspaper you have to have an education, you have a diploma, you graduated from the school of journalism, right? Okay, that's how they got the jobs and they were qualified. But as far as rock and roll magazines and being interviewed, there has never been an actual interview that went to print on paper that I was completely correctly quoted throughout the whole interview. They're always misquote just to make the headline more significant, to sell more print, all of that. Now, having said that, what we artists, the benefit that we get from doing these podcasts, as you call them, is the fact that you're watching me or listening to me speak my perception, my truth, according to me. It's not going to be, if I say something, unless, of course, you can always edit it and to have me say something else, but I trust that you're not going to. Right. I trust it. This is why from the very beginning, before I met you, I said, yes, let's do this, right? So you have to have some sort of amount of trust. And then I would trust you better than I would trust doing an interview on print. I would not. Now that we have these vehicles to actually tell our truth, this is not coming from Wikipedia. I'm talking to you right here. These are my words. So it's not something that somebody went on Wikipedia and wrote about me. Is it? Oh God, no. So this is why I keep doing this, and I will do them for as long as people keep asking me to do podcasts. So your listeners, your followers can actually hear the truth coming from me and not from a second information. Doing an interview with somebody, whether they're a certified journalist or not, that actually rewrites what you wrote to fit the print.
Well, that was the point that I was going to make, is that me, as a young man, idolizing everybody, back in the 80s, Judas Priest, Ozzy, everybody. But, we were brought up on reading the print. But my question to you was, which you pretty much answered it, how much of it was really true that we actually
Yeah.
read? Because for all we know, we could have been misled by a lot of articles. And, as a teenager, you close the magazine and you go, man, I can't believe you said that. Or, man, I can't believe, you know what I'm saying? But today's technology is, like you're saying, it's coming straight from you.
Yeah, I had an experience in 1984 when I did an interview. I believe it was with Circus Magazine, and and like I mentioned 40 years ago. Okay, 1981. In 1981, I was on my lowest financially and career wise I've ever been, sleeping in Kevin DuBro's apartment on the floor on a sheet. Made my peace with God, that my relationship with God was more important than anything else. Left it up to God, put it in God's hands. Within days, I was playing with Ozzy, and it didn't stop. I played with Ozzy, did those incredible tours, got to play with Randy Rhoads. It was a complete blessing. Move on to Quiet Riot Mental Health, another complete blessing. So in 1984, I'm doing an interview, and they were asking me about certain things about my career, and I wanted to give the truth where these blessings came from about my career, because before I could speak about my career, I gotta say, hey, you know what? I'm so incredibly grateful and blessed. And I mentioned to the journalist that I read the Bible every day, because I thought, not only is this coming from the heart, being grateful, but also, this is my truth. I do this, and this is where it's coming from, right? And so when I finally so it gets printed, and one of the quotes, big, they will put like big quotes on the interview. One of the big quotes was, Rudy Sarzo reads the Bible in the toilet, in the bathroom. And I saw that and said, you know what? Okay, this will be the last time that I'm going to talk to somebody who's going to write about me, about spirituality, the real me. From now on, if somebody is going to write about me, they're going to get something that I'm going to fabricate, because I cannot. God deserves better than this. I'm going to give them exactly what they want, and not the real me. So.
Well, that's the thing is, the media, it could be very misleading, about certain things. And that's why I always like to talk to the artist, because I really want to hear it, because I don't want to stir up another issue. But okay, let's get back to the music. I think a lot of these things you pretty much answered it, man. You nailed it. It's almost like if you knew what I was going to ask. But what is one of your favorite albums that you would say, man, if I can go back on tour and just relive this album, which album would it be for you?
If I want to relive something, I have memories, but I don't want to build my future based on my past.
Right.
Because it will never be as good as the past was, because it was in the past, and it would not be better than the future that my higher power is working on for me right now.
Yeah, that's true. What would you be doing different if you weren't playing music? What do you think you would be doing in life if music never really came?
If I wasn't playing it, performing it, I would be playing it on the radio.
Really?
Or listening to it on the radio.
When I was a limo driver in Chicago for a while, I always wanted to be in the music industry. I didn't know what it was, and I remember going to a Mexican radio station to bring Juan Gabriel, which is a very big artist. And I remember him talking to him, and I said, that's what I want to do. I want to
Yeah.
talk to the artist
Yeah.
because you're one-on-one, it's intimate, 5, 10 minutes, whatever, 20 minutes,
Mm.
but you're one-on-one. And it seemed
Yeah.
like everybody else that was in the industry, it was, oh, sign here, sign there, oh, we gotta go do this, we gotta go do that. I didn't want that. This is you're making my dream come true today. Whether your dream came, years ago when Sharon and Ozzy called you and you said you were sleeping on a bed sheet on the floor or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're making my dream come true today, and I just wanted to let you know that. And I wanted to let you know that, first of all, thank you for taking the
Yeah.
time because
Yeah.
you fulfilled my dream.
Yeah. And I'm sure someday you will feel somebody else's dream too.
Yeah, I
Because
had a kid
we
from
pass it on.
that I wrote that I was going to interview you, and he wrote me. He's from London. He's like 15, and he said, "I admire you. I listened to all your interviews. I got one more coming right after you." And he said, "Is there any way you could ever give me 5 minutes just to run your show on the mic to show you how dedicated I am for my dream?" So I've yet to answer him, but I wanted him to see this so he can understand that dreams do come true if you apply yourself and you dedicate yourself. And no matter how many ups and downs you go through life, you can get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, and I speak from experience. I mean, and again, my dream was not as big, not as big as what actually the blessings that I have received, because basically my mind is not as powerful as my creator's mind.
Right.
He created it's still creating the universe. For thousands of years, the universe has been expanding every second. The universe, not just our planet or even the moon. We're talking about, you know, and so my mind was like, well, okay, I want to, when I was surrendering my life to God, all I wanted to do was just be a working musician, somebody who was going to make a living out of playing music. Very simple. Not a rock star on number one album. No, I was like so like I couldn't even think about that. It's like trying to be the first bass player on the moon, doing a concert. It's like forget about it. Uh, but yeah, but so my thought was this much, and then all of a sudden it was like this big thing, and it was like, okay, this did not come from me. I did not manifest this. This came from completely somewhere else because I had no reference. I did not bring my past into my future with that thought. The thought of being a working musician, because I was not a working musician. So I thought, okay, I want to be a working musician. And then a power greater than me said, yeah, that and something else. It just added to it.
Yeah, my ex-wife and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago because we never really had closure to how everything ended. And I think once we put closure in it and forgiveness came into the picture, and I honestly, even though in my mind I said I forgive her, but I physically, emotionally, I didn't. And once I said that, oh my God, the opportunities in life, it was like a big door open. And you're
Yeah.
right about that higher power above us that pretty much it has to start with you first. Number one as a person, and then everything else kind of falls right into place. At least that's what I learned. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
think
I mean,
forgetting
it's
the past is number one, and letting it go and just keep moving forward. I think that's one of the keys to continuing your success in life, whatever it is.
yeah. Yeah. I find it amazing that human beings we've been given free will to think. And for many years I struggled with that philosophy of free will. And I got to tell you, I'm just going to encapsulate everything because I could talk about this for hours. Uh, I've learned that there's God's will. There's an order to the universe, the same order that keeps the planets from colliding, the same order that keeps the seasons and the earth rotating. I mean, this is beyond us. We can't control this. We cannot, no matter what we do, we cannot set the earth out of rotation, make it spin and make it collide with other planets in our solar system. No, it's impossible. We cannot do that. We can destroy it somehow geologically, yeah, but it would heal itself after we're gone. The earth has been through at least 15 cataclysmic cycles. So the earth has been destroyed, the ice age and whatever, nature, and then it rebuilds itself all over again. That's not us doing it. That's the universe. That's nature, right? So nature understands that. The difference between you, me, all human beings, and a tree is the fact that the tree will surrender to the higher power of nature, the sun coming in, or rain, or the seasons changing. It will surrender to that and let the tree be a tree and let nature do its thing, right? But we human beings, we got two choices. We got the choice of do God's will, which is, again, let the seasons happen, let the rain, let the sun make us grow and feed us, because that's part of our environment, of our health, our personal growth as human beings. Or we can do the opposite. We can create chaos. It's like driving on the freeway. You can either drive on the lanes that you're supposed to be with traffic, right? And you go to certain destinations. Everybody's getting off at a different ramp. We're trusting these little white lines on the road to keep us from colliding with each other. That's all we got. The trust of each other, looking out for each other when people are going to change in lanes. Okay, there's a certain order of things. Or you have the choice of getting on the wrong side of the lane that is going you're in opposite direction, but you're going in the direction that you want to go and create chaos and kill people, cause accidents, but you have a choice to do that. So are you going to pick the right lane on the road, or are you going to pick the wrong lane, which eventually you're going to collide?
Yeah, very true. I wanted to ask you something. I think, well, this is what we read publicly. You've been married for a long time, correct?
Yeah, going on 37 years. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. We met 40 years ago, 1981 September. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's incredible. How many kids do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
I got furry kids, furry little babies, little puppies.
Do you want them to be in the music business?
Who, me?
Like them? Your
Me?
kids? Yeah. Well, the furry ones, right?
Yeah. Yes, it's a doggy, Yorkshire
Yeah.
Terrier. Yeah.
Well,
She.
sometimes people
Yeah.
do commercials and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Want to ask you something. Equipment. What is your advice for young kids out there that are picking up a bass for the very first time? What is your
Yeah.
advice for them? Because
Yeah. I mean, as long as the instrument, the whatever, I'm not talking about amplifiers. I'm talking about whatever you put your hands on. Make sure that it's a quality instrument that will not hinder your playing or your progression as a musician. Basically, invest in an instrument that will inspire you to play action wise, or sometimes you can buy something that might need tweaking action wise to make you play better or faster or sounding better. some musicians we have different strength in our hands. Some like higher action. I prefer lower action. That's just the way that I like things to feel. Less having to strain to play the instrument. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to do that. There's some really good instruments manufacturer. Let's say if Fender builds, or Gibson, any of those major brands, if they build an instrument in a country that is a little bit more cost effective to manufacture, and they bring it to the United States, it becomes more of the economy line. But I got to tell you, I played enough of those off the rack, which means I'll go to a music store and pick it up and play them just to see how they feel, how they would feel to a beginner, because the beginner only has one reference, whatever they're playing at that moment. They will know. I've been playing long enough that I can tell you what's good quality or what isn't, from the headstock to the bridge. So what I would recommend is something that feels like, yeah, I want to pick this bass up, or I don't want to get it off of my hands. I want to get this. And usually they're very affordable. So I would really recommend to begin with an instrument like that. And once you have that instrument that makes you play comfortable, don't focus on getting a better one. Just make yourself better. Once you found a usable instrument, it's not about the instrument, it's about the music that you create with it. What music that's in your head. Yeah, use other people's music, but when you do that, dissect them. See what makes that music so pleasant for you to play. Why are you playing this song? Why is this song so popular? Why so many people are connecting with it? Find those qualities and learn from what you learned how to play. Learn why you are playing that song. Get music education, harmony theory. There's I got to tell you, there's music courses available online on YouTube from music teachers, actual from their classroom. He puts on a camera. I've only seen a he, that's why I say he. I'm sure there's other female teachers out there too. Music teacher that puts on a camera, and you can actually attend get the same education that somebody who's actually present in that classroom is getting. So there's really no excuse not to be educated in music. Music education is going to give you a better vocabulary to express yourself musically. It's gonna give you choices. It's what I mean. It's like when we're having a conversation, we're picking certain words, and I make a choice to use this word rather than this other word because it suits our conversation much better. Things like that.
Well, here's what I wanted to say is, because of my podcast, I get so many bands every day sending their music. And here's one of the things that I see is that I see a lot of the history of music, back from the influences of their 80s. I see them in their music. I hear it in their music. But I don't see no creativity. And what I mean by that is that, Quiet Riot did not sound like Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden didn't sound like Judas Priest. Everybody had their own quality of sound in their style. I don't want to get a lot of people mad, but I just don't see that in today's music. What I see is everybody copying history.
I got a very simple question. It's because we don't have a music industry anymore, especially for rock and roll. We don't. Even the labels that are releasing new music, they're not assigning an infrastructure to the musician that used to exist. If you, let's say 30 years ago, 40 years ago, okay, we got signed to, let's say, Quiet Riot, Pasha Records, off.
Yeah.
So you can edit it. Oh yeah, by the way, I have another Zoom call coming in at 10 my time. So I only got like whatever until the top of the hour.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. I mean, if you have to
Okay.
go, that's fine. It's not a
Okay.
problem.
Okay.
We can
Okay.
always do it again some other time, but if you want to
Yeah.
pick up where you were at.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna pick it up from where we left off, so you can edit that. Okay. So 40 years ago, when Quiet Riot got signed, we not only was there a criteria as to why Quiet Riot got a record deal. One of the main criteria was that the producer Spencer Proffer, who owned the label and who owned the publishing company, who owned the recording studio, he was looking for a singer in LA that could sing "Come on, Feel the Noise." That was it. And he heard Kevin and says, this guy has the range, he can do it. This is my guy. Right. Okay. So as a matter of fact, the band was called Dubrow at the time. And I have been in Dubrow because I was living with Kevin. And Dubrow was really a continuation of Quiet Riot. Randy leaves Quiet Riot to join Ozzy, and then Kevin is left to like put a band together. And at that time, musicians were struggling to make a living, and so it was very tough to keep a band together. So he said, "Okay, I'm going to name it Dubrow. So no matter who is playing in the band, it's me, Dubrow, and then I'll deal with the name like someday when we get a record deal." So he did Dubrow, and I started playing with him. I moved in with Kevin. I started playing with him, and then I joined Ozzy. And then Dubrow continued. Chuck Wright came in, and then eventually they got Frankie, and they got Carlos, and then by the time that I went in the studio as an invitation to play on Thunderbird, Chuck was not around anymore. It was Tony Cavazzo who came in after I finished tracking Thunderbird and a few other songs that went up on the record. And Tony Cavazzo came in to play on Come on, Feel the Noise. Then later, when I officially joined the band, I retracted. I played it myself. Came up with whatever with the bass line because I had no idea what Tony. They never really said play what Tony played. No, it's okay. You go ahead. Play what you feel for Come on, Feel the Noise. And but there was a structure. You could not get signed to a record label unless you were original sounding. There was A&R, there were scouts that would go to all the clubs checking out the band, who is original, who do we think could be the next thing, because the music industry kept pushing everything forward because they have to sell new stuff. So it was basically a business decision to make music progress, because if music remained exactly the same, even cereal, they keep changing the box to make it look new. It's the same cereal inside, but it's or the new improved. It's just to sell more. So just like in the 80s, at some point, record companies felt, well, we sold enough of this 80s stuff. Let's move on into something new. Then you got grunge. Then you got gangster rap. Even rap music evolves just to sell new rap. It's not the same as it was when Run DMC, came out back in the 90s or the 80s, whatever, or even the 70s, because rap's been around for a long time, So it just keeps moving just to sell more. So now the interest is in what sells the most. Well, we got urban, we got like artists like Billie Eilish, then we have like country music, new country, Taylor Swift, and whoever's the new big country rock star right now, things like that. But rock and roll has nothing. Rock and roll does not have an infrastructure of executives saying, I want to sign this act. This is the new sound. No, they got nobody. They don't care. So labels that want to be in business and stay in business, releasing rock records, they do two things. And I've been there because I had to deal with Cleopatra, with Quiet Riot. I had to deal with Cleopatra. And it was like, okay, you guys want to do new songs? Well, then the other half of the record has to be re-recordings of your classics. And we did that just so we could have half a record with new songs. That was, that was the Alive and Well record that we did. That was the first thing when in the '90s the original Metal Health version reunited.
So is it safe to say that probably the record industry probably doesn't have much interest in rock music anymore?
Well, the major labels, no.
Yeah.
It's all about classic and legacy, which is basically, it's the old stuff. It's the old catalog. Nothing new.
I was watching MTV's Music Awards, and I remember watching, I was going through my head watching MTV Music Awards, and Metallica was on there, everything, a different style of music today. Yeah. I don't even know where these people come from. I didn't even know they existed.
When you're talking about stadium bands like Metallica, and once in a while, these stadium bands will come up with new material. The reason why they do it is so they can give the promoter something new. Say, okay, they're touring on a new record. Do you think AC/DC really needs to go in the studio to make another record to sell stadiums? No, they don't. To sell stadiums, but it's musical satisfaction that these artists get. And they're still signed to major labels because they're major artists, but to be a number one record nowadays is about less than 100,000 in a week. Way less than that, right? When Quiet Riot reached number one, it was 1 million in a week. Case in point, when we went to number one, we have to push Michael Jackson's Thriller, the biggest album in music history. That's how many records we had to sell back then.
I think today, and me as a fan, speaking for myself, is that I can't, as a kid, I remember leaving high school and going, oh my God, a new band just came out. AC/DC, Back in Black, everybody in high school is talking about. You haven't heard the music yet. You don't know what's on it. You just know it's a new band because everybody else in high school is talking about it. I can't say the same thing today. And I'm really disappointed because I don't think, me as a podcaster, is my opinion, nobody else's. I think people are just lacking the talent out there just because they can play the guitar, they can play a riff, and and I watch them and I'm like, oh my God, you just played the riff exactly like the artist, but as I listen to your music, I don't hear anything. I hear you mixing in everything else you have learned into that soup. Now, I can make a ribeye steak really good, but I'm not a chef.
Yeah, you know what? But the way I look at it, and I'm looking at it from 2 points of view, two perceptions. One as a fan, I've been a fan longer than I've been a musician, and I look at it as a musician, and I understand both. Let's say, for example, hypothetically, this ever happened. Miles Davis, school musician, jazz pioneer, listens to Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly's on the radio and it's getting airplay, and Miles Davis is only on the jazz station. Meanwhile, this guy's selling gazillions of records, right? And he'll say, oh, what is this guy doing? He only playing 3 chords, can barely sing. He's selling all those records, and it's 3 guys. Jazz, those are like, it's a big band. It costs more money to keep a jazz or swing band on the road touring than it is 3 guys, rock and roll, and it's like, so there's a certain perception that he has. But if you look at the perception of the youth, it's not that the youth said, this, I don't like jazz because it's too many notes. I don't think they said that. They said, I like rock and roll because these are kids. They're speaking to me. It's my music now. Jazz was my parents' music. If I'm going to build a soundtrack to my future, I want it to be based on the music that I know it's coming, that this new music is influencing, like Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly influenced the Beatles. That's how we got the Beatles. The Beatles influenced everybody else after that. That's how we got everybody else after that. You know, and it is like kids. It's the future is like not written yet. And they want to start their lives like that, not bringing their parents' past into their own future. This is again talking about how to build your future. Don't build it from your past. Don't take the soundtrack of your parents' life into your own, because it might not even match. How can your future match? You got this whole thing. You got the Beatles going on, and you got, you know, everything that happened in the 60s happening with that soundtrack. You know, could be Motown, of course, you know, Memphis, the Beatles, it could be the West Coast sound, but that music is being created because of the present. That music is chronicling what it's like. CNN, the news. Well, there's the Vietnam War, so the Doors are going to, you know, write music that emotionally reflects that. You know, there's certain things happening, certain events occurring, you know, so you cannot use truly as the soundtrack of your life something from the past. You got to build it, and you use whatever is accessible. If it's a guy writing songs with 3 chords but really resonates and it's a representation of my present, I'm going with that. Look at Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, one guy, one acoustic guitar, and I think is one of the greatest singers ever because he knows that he's the messenger of his own music, the original messenger, you know. And he said, and it's there, and it's like mind-blowing the whole generation. Yeah. Because he could connect with what's going on in the present that build the future.
All right, Rudy, I got another call at 1, just like you do, so we're going to have to...
Thank you so much, Jorge. It's been a pleasure. Bendiciones y salud.
I hope you come back and talk with us some more. I mean, it was...
I sure will. Looking forward to it.
And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Hasta la vista.
Thank you.
Thank you.